All right, everyone. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to hop right into it. First thing I want to talk about is I've been doing a lot of scalping and smaller plays and lottos recently, and I'm not going to touch on those as much as I'm going to touch on some of the bigger ideas. So if there's things I don't cover in this video, because I know I've been slacking on the daily reviews this week, just shoot me a DM or post in the chat, and I'll make sure I touch on it. But I want to touch on most of the bigger ideas. So we had the Irene swings, and we took some weeklies for some profits. I tried to look for a continuation that failed, and I went ahead and cut it later to the day. But still walking away today with some really great profits on Irene. Bigger picture here, I'm still looking for this thing to take out the all-time high. 70 was the first target. Above that, I start looking for 91 and then 130. 110 is also a major fib level that's actually not shown here if we do our classic high and low structures. But I think the big thing to keep in mind here is that you do have this smaller wave 1, 2, 3 structure here, but this is also looks to be one giant bull flag for this name. Just a amazing pendant. So I think that we're going to see a quick continuation here, and this thing could pop a whole lot higher. That structure really comes to life when you look at the monthly here with how this is set up. We just had a great bond offering in the after hours, so I did see that the stock initially tried to rally, and then we've gotten some headlines, some Trump headlines that kind of have taken the futures market down here. We are in a kind of a tough spot right here where we are seeing the momentum dying down on the TTM, but we're getting confirmations from the RSI. This RSI at a 78 here kind of tells me like, hey, we don't get much higher than this before the market looks for pretty substantial resets. And we have a big expiration tomorrow. So, I even into the close today, I felt out like an MU short, especially since, even here we could see that like on the 15-minute time frames, nearly every stock was setting up these wedges into the end of the day. So there's a lot of indecision on whether they should be taking risk off after a great week into the close. I was really trying to feel out this MU position. The thing is that the weeklies I'm paying like $30 per contract, $3,000 per contract. But the daily was only $6. But I didn't really like how the premiums were moving when we melted down, so I went ahead and cut it because the theta burn is so difficult. So it might be a top watch for zero DTEs if the market does continue to capitulate. If the bleed is not too bad, if we gap down substantially, like a full percent on SPY, maybe we see a continuation on MU, or maybe we just make this double bottom at 700 and this thing tries to just explode back to the upside, and I'm just simply not bullish enough. I honestly feel like this type of, these types of big gaps in here looks really frothy. Like I feel like we want the puke. I'm honestly pretty shocked we have not seen it yet. I think that's highly unusual, but it might just be I just don't have the convictions I need to have. Intel is rolling over on the daily. I think if we lose the 113, I'm going to look for like a quick scalp to 111. I tried to fill out this move today, in fact, but I got burnt out when I wasn't getting follow through, and it ended up just doing consolidation all day. I absolutely murdered the premiums, by the way, because the rest of the market, the VIX just melted down all day while the market trapped sideways in these wedges. So even when I tried a small attempt to buy the dip on Microsoft into the close, I didn't get that pop, at least to the higher date that I was looking for. So it's a tough one. Right? But even we look at Microsoft though, when we look at bigger picture, whether you're looking at Microsoft, whether you're looking at Nvidia, whether you're looking at Apple, pullbacks here are buys. If we get a big sell off, maybe the big options expiration leads to the sell in May trend, and then people come back in June and they buy the dip. That would be a beautiful reset. A reset I would most definitely welcome from the market, and I would like to just pound positions out on the market and buy the dip with size. But these setups are too good that I feel like I gotta get in now. If they want to cut me up, if they want to bleed me, I'm willing to take that pain as we look for further highs. And keep in mind, this is definitely an environment where some of these company fundamentals are so strong that that they might have enough alpha to weather that. So you kind of gotta play where you can average into those positions. And I mean, it's been really tough because I feel like I've said this a few times, right? Like, we want to feel out these swings, but we want to be mindful that there could be dramatic pullbacks. And, when the market does no substantial pullbacks, for a month and a half, it makes it difficult. Because the higher we go, the more substantial that pullback will be, and potentially the more pain we take across the balance sheet. We'll see what that pullback looks like and how it pans out. If it's a quick rug, if it's quick enough, it might not murder premiums much, because volatility will pump so much. But if it looks like it's setting up to be a slow bleed back to 730 or lower, then I might have to just fully do some full resets, just to manage the risk. Even though I like the positions long term, and I think that most of my targets are going to get hit. So I'm looking for 313 on Apple. Honestly, with the way NVIDIA is setting up here, we've had basically 10 months of 8 months of consolidation here, and we're finally getting a new breakout to all-time highs. And even if there's a dip tomorrow, your earnings is on the 20th. I think you're very likely to see a run-up into that earnings, a sell-off into that earnings. Would also probably be a great lotto opportunity, because they'll probably kill premiums into the earnings. So if you do get an earnings move, they could potentially pay very well. There's been nothing from other companies' earnings to suggest that NVIDIA is going to have a bad earnings. Even if they technically are losing market share, it looks like the growth rates are far too strong for that to even just show up in the numbers quite yet. The space is just growing too fast. For downside, I think I already mentioned Intel, MU. Even looking at something like AMD might be a good potential short, running extremely hot, hitting extreme RSI levels. It doesn't get much overbought than this historically, but the news, I think I wouldn't say it's overbought. I would just say it probably needs a reset. Because I think the news justify the move that we got. But we are seeing the classic setup where, stock making new highs, RSI not giving confirmations. So, I have my alert here, but I think, even under the 446, you could look for a puke here. You're kind of setting this wedge, and we kind of closed in the green on the day. But if we give up this wedge to the downside, you could see a quick puke lower that ends up getting bought later this year and probably makes new highs, because I do think that this market is incredibly strong. Even when we look at SPY, even though the daily's been rolling over here, first of all, the RSI is actually still giving us confirmations, and the weekly looks like it's just getting started. Also important to note that we flipped the monthly last month and then we held it this month. So, you could see a pretty substantial pullback and still be overall in this large uptrend from the market. And today we even saw more participation broadly. A lot of that comes from Trump inviting a bunch of the tech CEOs, which I think is what really caused the extension of this move more than I anticipated. I believe I can actually double check here, because we had our big weekly prep report. Because I was trying to feel out shorts. I was trying to feel out shorts today, kind of in anticipation tomorrow to see if we get a dump. People taking risk off into tomorrow because there's a lot of anxiety about the major expiration. But I was also trying it at 737. Okay, so over this, the next major level is 780 actually. But between 737 and 750 should actually be another major level. Like, I feel like I have an arrow pointing here for a reason. But regardless, the point is we do need to have some risk on there. But a lot of setups are great. RDW was the winner today. If we pan out, like, we flipped the daily's firing to the upside. The weekly just flipped green as well. And we have great fundamental catalysts as well. This company. I mean, we've got the daily. We've got the daily and the 2-day already giving the confirmation. So we're within that bar pattern where I would call this a golden setup. And so we've been taking some pain. I don't know how long did we wait on this one, like 5 days or so. But now it's paying big, and we took some size there. This one really makes up for what a turd CEG was. You know, that CEG setup that failed. I don't have a lot of these trades fail. So it's a bummer. You know, I was on a hot win streak with this setup. This setup does not fail very often when we get it. I think CEG is also definitely set up for long-term as a winner. This will probably eventually be a dip I buy. And I also would not be surprised if this later turns into a failed breakdown, shorts caught off sides, and this thing rallies not just through the bottom, but through the top. And then later in the year, I get the move. I'm not letting it fall off my radar because it's just too damn good of a company. You know, and speaking of offsides, I think it's an important time to kind of talk about the frothiness we've seen. We've seen this set up a lot. And yesterday, Real Essential, we hit that great play from Baba, which then kind of broke me today on some of my my rolls. But I kind of want to hold this position a little bit more because I still like the way. I don't like that we gave up 144. Not at all. It's actually, and you know, I try to warn people with the swings. This stock just freaking loves to do this. It can be such a turd. It's so difficult to trade. In fact, a lot of the banking stocks can be really difficult to trade as well. But I do really like this setup, and we've actually seen this setup over and over this week, and caught this a few times for daily scalps. With a good positive win rate actually. But this kind of breakdown in the pre-market where we get an initial down move that kind of tries to break the structure but then reverses through it. Like I was just talking about a CEG that was on a much larger time frame, but you can still see these on these smaller time frames, you know, like on the 15-minute chart. When you get to the reversal that pops through the pre-market structure, you know, through this area of resistance, that's when you can get these explosive moves as people who are trying to get short get stopped out. And I think Baba had a great earnings. And given how this level looks on longer time frames, as you guys know, like we were actually trying swings here for a bit, but this pullback was just brutal. It was so much deeper than I expected. Because again, these names can be so tough to trade. But that pop yesterday was really beautiful, and I wanted to see a consolidation. The way we closed here, though, is neither bearish nor bullish. We got this doji candle, so we have a candle of indecision here. I could see that, you know, we actually back tested the daily support and held it. So I still want to keep the swings on here. You know, I went ahead and bought for June just in case we kind of get this pullback in May. Given that we're 15th on the 15th, though, and we got 15 days less than the month, I might have to pull off some of the swings and then look to buy once the market recovers. But a lot of these names, like, they have great setups right now. So it's you got to kind of fight some of that anxiety in the back of your head and play what you see on the chart in front of you. For other bigger ideas, HIMS newsletter coming out tonight. We're going to write that up as soon as I'm done with this. I was really bummed to see that we're still kind of just playing within this bull flag. But if we can get a breakthrough back into this channel, okay, then I'm going to buy the dip. I've been very, 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 very patient with adding to this one. I added a little bit yesterday, and I'm looking to see if I can add more to the August swings and just give this one tons of time. I want to make sure I capture that FDA catalyst on the peptide decisions that comes in June. And then there's another one in July. Let's see here. What am I also forgetting? ZBRA. ZBRA was mentioned by one of the members. Oh, by one of our analysts, actually. He really likes this name. Shout out Monty, who was looking awfully beefy at his bodybuilding show. I really like the way this one's setting up. This is similar to RDW, and he said the fundamentals are also just as good. So we got the nice pop today. We got the nice up move. The thing is, there's absolutely zero interest in options on this stock. There was very little liquidity. I don't like to play in that because then it makes it really difficult for exits. If those spreads aren't a little bit tighter, it could be kind of a nightmare to get out. The fewer human participants are, the more likely you're going to be battling some algo that's going to screw you over. I'm not really looking to 1v1 a bot, especially now that we've been working on them and I see how good they are now. But this looks like a full confirmation. So we see the daily give a nice continuation here on shorter time frames. It also this thing looks ripe, man. If the market does puke, I'm also really interested to see if this thing actually maintains its strength, because there's a few names like this where they don't look like they need pullbacks at all. They look like they're just getting started. Like this thing looks like it can have a pretty explosive move to the upside. We've set the higher low. We look like we've formed a very classic wave 1. And it looks like we're going to take a wave 3, and then we'll have a wave 5 as well. After a wave 4 pullback, we know where our stop is, the 243. If you break below 243, okay, we've retraced into the first wave. We know that invalidates the 5-wave pattern, and instead, and to get out, right? So I think this is one that where interest is just going to build and not die. We also had clarification on the Clarity Act, which made me get back in Coin. Coin, another name. I've been holding shares in this one too. It actually took me below my entry for a little bit, but I've continued to hold. We're getting some profits here. And I'm looking to see if this is the catalyst that really picks up the market. Crypto is not made. It looked like we were just going to get a clean downside move to 72, where I was looking for the pullback. Does it have to go to 72? Wouldn't be surprised if it just went to 75. So far, it just went to 79. It's been trying really hard to hold 80. But I think actually let me actually even just pull back here on the daily. So that could be the pullback. What I'd really like to see is the 76. 76 would be really nice. And then give me the wave 3. Then give me my wave 3 and take me to 106. Then I'd like to see a pullback. It pulls back to 91 at the lowest, and then give me my upside move higher. I could also be really shorting this wave 3. Could take us potentially all the way back to new high, pull back to 107, and then a move to all-time highs into the end of the year. That's also another total possibility. It's easier if we get more substantial pullbacks. Pullbacks in an environment like this are gifts. This market's running really hot. And, if we could just get a nice pullback, I would gladly start to size up substantially. But I've been, for mostly risk averse, I've been willing to take some size on some positions. I think I about covered them all. I think, I don't know if I mentioned bull. But there's been a lot to cover. There's also a lot of names that I haven't covered that I think I need to do like a weekly report video. I think I talked about them on the Sunday prep live stream. There's a few setups that haven't come to fruition but are on my radar. Bull here looks really good. I'm actually surprised that actually let's go over here where I actually have it charted out. We actually got the bounce back in one day. We had that breakdown, but I held it. I held it because, one of the reasons I held this, even though we looked like we were going to break the structure, is one, you need to actually close below the structure, which sucks. Sometimes people say, and I think it's a lot of difficulties, especially for some new traders that are saying, Josh, why'd you let that go down 40%, 50%? Well, I need the actual confirmation that wasn't going to work. And sometimes that means I lose more. And sometimes that means that those positions that are down 34%, 35%, 45% make these miraculous recoveries. And I go down from 35% to up 50% on the position. And this is another one where it looked like it was going to break the structure, but the candle did not close. And it did that full recovery. Well, when you fail breakdowns, there's nothing more bullish than that. And then, so I wouldn't be surprised if this thing exploded all the way back through the upside. Especially if we get a continuation tomorrow and we don't see that sell-on may go away. Keep in mind, this is another name though where earnings is coming up on the 21st. So, there could be a pullback on the market tomorrow, but then we get a quick bounce back next week. That's something to keep in mind. So I think we'll end on that one. There's a lot to look at in this market, though, man. There's a lot going on. I would be fine if things drifted higher from here. I think there's plenty of setups and plenty of stuff to play that doesn't spook me quite as much as the rest of the market. By the way, I don't think the GS. Let's talk about GS. GS took 150% today because this breakdown this morning got to me. I actually saw the 65 looking like it wanted to roll over, and the 15 in tandem puking with it this morning. But then we ended up seeing a pop to more new highs. But you take 150% on a trade, and you take some daily scalps that multiple times hitting scalps off these bottoms. Again, just like we talked about with Baba, these quick plunges, through the pre-market that end up fully reversing over the pre-market structure. These are really great setups, especially when longer-term time frames stay higher. Especially when these long-term time frames are screaming higher. When you see that failed breakdown setup in the pre-market, that's a lot of those really great scalps that I've been hitting. So keep in mind, keep a lookout for those like that give and then go setup. So I hope you're all doing well. Sorry this video is so long, but there was a lot to talk about. I think there is still a lot to talk about. So I will end it here by saying that I am bullish. I am anxiously bullish on this market. Okay. So let's see what tomorrow brings us. It'll really set the tone for next week. And God bless, guys. It was a great day, good day of profit. So let's get back to work tomorrow, bright and early.